3 unsolved mysteries that will make your blood boil. In today's video, we are going to explore the 3 most shocking unsolved crime cases which make news headlines and captured public attention around the world. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell icon so that we can notify you when there's a new video released. Tara Kaliko Case. On Tuesday, September 1988, Tara Kaliko was an American woman who left home around 9:30 a.m. to go on her usual bike ride along the New Mexico State Road in Belen. It's difficult. Tara Kaliko was last seen riding her bike along Highway 47 just south of Berlin, near mile marker 15. It was a bike ride that she did almost every single day, and on the morning of her disappearance, she told her mom, "If I'm not back by noon, come look for me." It's been 30 years, and she hasn't been seen since. Tara's mother, Patty Doll, stopped riding with Tara before that day, stating that she was harassed by motorists along State Road 47. In July 1989, a Polaroid photo of an unidentified young woman and a small boy bound and gagged in the back of a white minivan surfaced in Port St. Joe, Florida, thought to be Tara and a missing boy named Michael Henley, also of New Mexico, who disappeared in April 1988. Although after further investigation, the photo proved not to be done of Tara and the little boy, Michael. In recent years, 2 more pictures surfaced but were inconclusive. Stunning rock terrain or the Manzano Mountains may have been the very last thing. At 19 years old, Tara saw alive. It's a haunting thought that's plagued Michelle Dole's mind, keeping her up at night, asking the same questions about her stepsister, what happened and why. It was very frightening. The last photo taken of her the day before she went missing, in these never-before-seen documents from the case file, Michelle shows the timeline of Tara's day on September 20th, 1988 at 9:30 a.m. She left for her ride. She was last seen by a woman named Annie between 11:15 a.m. and noon. Her Boston cassette tape was found near mile marker 16. Some 20 years after Tara's disappearance, Valencia County Sheriff Rennie Rivera made a bold statement about knowing what happened to her on that fateful September day, claiming the 19-year-old was attacked by boys she knew in high school. A man named Henry Brown made a deathbed confession to the police, claiming that Lawrence Romero Jr. and Dave Silva were responsible for Tara's disappearance. Unfortunately, both suspects, Maurice Romero Jr. and David Silva, had passed away. The family and the Valencia County Police Department are looking for someone to come forward on the whereabouts of Tara's remains or if they knew her location, if she is still alive. In the Tara Kaliko investigation, Tara's headlines would monopolize the media for the next 10 years. Michelle believes there's no happy ending to its story, believing her stepsister was murdered. David Glenn Louise. Let's rewind the clock to February 1 and take a trip to Yakima County, Washington. On Route 24 near Moxie, a man was spotted lying down dead in the middle of the road. He was middle-aged, wearing glasses and dressed in a military-style outfit with work boots. There were no substances in the system. He was believed to be the victim of a hidden ram, and a Chevrolet Camaro was seen speeding away from the scene around the time he died. Since he wasn't carrying any form of ID, and his identity remained a mystery. He would stay at John Doe for another 10 years. But that's not even the crazy part. Let's get into it. The day before John Doe's body was discovered in Yakima County, 1,600 miles away in Amarillo, Texas, Karen Glenn Louise and her daughter were returning home from a shopping weekend in Dallas. They opened the front door expecting to find their husband and father, David Glenn Louise, waiting for them inside. But they didn't. The house was empty. Strange. Stranger still was that David's wedding ring and watch had been left on the kitchen counter. It was a Super Bowl weekend, and a tape which had been manually set to record the match was still recording even though the game was long over. There were 2 freshly made turkey sandwiches in the fridge. There was no note or anything to indicate what David might have gone. It seemed as if he had left suddenly and in a hurry, but why did he leave his ring and watch behind in plain view? The following day, when David still hadn't returned home, on that same morning John Doe's body was discovered, Karen filed the missing person report for her husband. The investigators examined the house and found no signs of a struggle or forced entry. It appeared as if David had left of his own volition. That didn't make sense. David was a devoted family man with a good job as far as everyone knew, a stable state of mind. Searching for David quickly turned up a vital clue. His house and car keys were found underneath the floor mat. His checkbook, credit cards and driver's license were all found in his car. David's items were now accounted for. The only thing missing was the man himself. This is where Karen, his wife, told the detectives a vital piece of information. Just before he disappeared, David had confided in her that his life was in danger, but refused to go into details about it, only telling her that someone had been threatening him. This is where his job comes into play. David was an attorney, and even the most amicable of attorneys have enemies, though we do not know exactly who was threatening David or why. It could easily have been one of his former clients who felt that David had failed them in some way. On top of that, David was a man of strong principles. His law firm was fighting their case against a wealthy client, and David was scheduled to speak against his own company. He said that the deposition he planned to tell the truth, whoever it was, with the law firm standing to lose a lot of money if David refused to lie and was involved in his disappearance somehow. After digging a little deeper, the investigators learned that David had booked a plane ticket on January 31st, the same day he vanished. This ticket was from Dallas to Amarillo. Wait a second, David's wife and daughter had just come from Dallas back to Amarillo on the same day. David wasn't in Dallas with them. That suggests that he had secretly followed his family to Dallas, although how he got there remains unknown, and they booked a plane ticket so he could get home before them and make it appear as if he had been at home the entire time. It's unknown whether he made that flight or not. The plot thickened even further when they also learned that he had booked a ticket on February 1st, the day he was reported missing. This extremely strange and seemingly nonsensical twist in the investigation took the detectives down a rabbit hole, which led to a dead end. The only other thing that they learned was that on February 1st, a man matching David's description got a taxi from a hotel in Dallas to Fort Worth International Airport. The taxi driver said that the man was extremely nervous and fumbled to pay him with a wad of $100 bills. With no other information to go on, the case went cold. 10 years would pass. In 2003, patrol detective Pat Ditter made a connection between David's case and that of the unknown John Doe Washington. If you hadn't guessed already, the two men were the same. This was confirmed after a DNA test. David was the John Doe who died in a suppose it hadn't run 1,600 miles from his home. This was a huge discovery. A mystery surrounding the whereabouts of David Glenn Louise had been solved. But even though that mystery now has an answer, we can't classify David's case as being complete. There's still a whole bunch of unanswered questions about his death. What was in Washington in the first place? How did he get there? Why was he wearing a military uniform when he died? Why does he secretly book these plane tickets? What business did he have in Los Angeles? Did he book the tickets on his own accord, or was he taken against his will? Did any of this have to do with the threat made to David's life? Because the hidden ram was an accident, no one had ever been able to answer any of these questions. The police have discounted foul play, and the investigation into David's case has officially ceased. So there we have it. The two mysteries of Yakima County John Doe and the whereabouts of David Glenn Louise turned out to be one big mystery. After all, the puzzle remains incomplete, the unanswered questions being missing pieces. It's an intriguing case, one that continues to baffle professional investigators and internet sleuth alike. Even all these years later, hopefully one day we'll have some answers, and David's fans can have the closure they so desperately crave. The Girl Scout slayings. We all might have felt a little less secure around those campfires growing up. That says Tulsa's most infamous cold case, the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. It was 1977 in the camp season. It just started in Oklahoma Camp. Scout was one of the finest Girl Scout camps in the state and was celebrating its 50th anniversary based 50 kilometers outside of Tulsa. He posted 410 acres of land with its very own creek and clusters on platform tents spread out among the trees, a little slice of heaven on earth for any nature-loving kid in preparation for the big camp outside of the season. The counselors and training held the training sessions by themselves to ensure everyone knew what they were doing and that all of the young scouts will be safe during the week-long break. During this training exercise, one counselor brought along a box of donuts to share out during the evening, where she left with her personal belongings. After returning from the day's activities, she found that the box had been opened and all of the donuts were gone. In their place was a sinister note which said that 3 campers were going to be murdered. She took that sinister note to her supervisor and they all brushed it off. This was just some tasteless prank, nothing to be concerned about, right? It was Sunday, June 12, and the first buses full of Girl Scouts arrived at Camp Scott School had just been around for summer, so spirits were high. The weather didn't match the youngsters' vibes, though what with it being a misty and rainy day. All of the scouts were split into age-appropriate groups and sent to their designated tents. Each of them held about 4 to 6 campers. The rest of the evening was filled with a whole host of fun activities ranging from archery to swimming to making smokes around the campfire, and of course, telling a few ghost stories while doing so. But the festivities of that first night were short-lived, as the weather took a turn for the worst and sudden thunderstorm forced everyone to run back to their tents. There they would be safe from the elements, but not from a known person who had been watching them the whole day. The Kiowa units of tents were arranged in a horseshoe pattern with a campfire and common area in the center. What made the Kiowa unit a little different was that it had an extra tent number 8, which was situated a little further back from all evidence, much closer to the trees that paired with the heavy rain and complete darkness made it difficult for the Kiowa unit counselor to see at tent number 8. 6 a.m. on the 13th, and one of the counselors woke up early to go and shower as she cut through the trail that led to the bathhouse. She made her gruesome and heartbreaking discovery. 3 sleeping bags were lying in the middle of the trail, piled on top of one another. She unzipped the top back. After doing so, she ran back to the camp and told the other counselors that she had just found the 3 sleeping bags containing the bodies of Laurie Lee, Farmer Michelle, Heather Goose, and Doris Dennis Miller, 8, 9, and 10 respectively. All 3 had been beaten to death with a flashlight found at the scene. Whoever had taken their lives had also done other things to them. None of their parents could have predicted what would happen to their daughters when they dropped them off for what was supposed to be a fun-filled break. The camp was of course immediately evacuated and sniffer dogs were brought in to track down evidence. Here what was found, a footprint belonging to a man or a size 9.5, was imprinted in blood found in tent number 8. There was a single unknown fingerprint found on the lens of the flashlight, which was used to hit the victims. Local people in the area also reported hearing, quote-unquote, quite a bit of traffic on a small remote road between the camp and his property between 2:30 and 3 a.m. That appears to be the time that the murders took place. Detectives started scouring Oklahoma for suspects and set their sights on a man called Jim Leroy Hart, a guy with a solid reputation to say the least. He had been in and out of jail for a bunch of different offenses over the years and was on the run after a successful prison break. His family home was only 1 mile away from the Camp Scott, so needless to say, he knew the area well. He was found hiding out in the Cherokee Medicine Man's house later that same year and was taken to a trial with the sheriff himself, claiming to be 1000% certain he was guilty of taking the scouts' lives. Despite that, things just didn't add up. For instance, Hart didn't wear a 9.5 shoe. It also wasn't his fingerprint on the flashlight. He had a solid alibi, and various other pieces of evidence pointed to him not being the prep DNA evidence at the scene, however later being analyzed, and the results showed that the odds of the Hart being the killer was 1 in 7,700 accusations started to be made about him being framed. The jury acquitted him. Still, he was sent back to the same prison he had escaped from. He still had 305 of a 308-year sentence to finish. He only served 2 of those, however, as he died in 1979 of a heart attack after lifting weights for an hour in the exercise yard. So, if you're not in great shape, make sure to take it easy. If he wasn't responsible for the Girl Scout murders, who thought? This all happened over 40 years ago now, and the case remains unsolved. Investigators still don't know if they're looking for one guy or several. As such, the who and why are likely to remain unknown for a long time. There are a plethora of theories floating around, and no smoking gun to speak on. I still believe the motives will be solved. Sadly, childhood friends of Laurie's, many years after the incident, as a side note, 2 of the victim families sued the camp for $5 million, claiming they have been negligent by ignoring the threatening note in the donut box by a 93-vote jurors to side in favor of the camp. Thank you for joining with Lavender City Channel, and we'll bring you to the world many interesting mysteries. So stay tuned. Thanks.